Garcia, the plaintiff, and Ms. Billotti, the defendant, over a room rental agreement that went awry. Mr. Garcia is seeking the return of money he paid to Ms. Billotti when he attempted to rent a room in her home but later decided not to move in. The dispute began in mid-August when Mr. Garcia was searching for housing. He discovered Ms. Billotti's rental listing on Craigslist on August 13th. The following day, August 14th, he contacted her via email to express his interest in the available room. After exchanging several emails, they arranged for Mr. Garcia to view the property in person. When Mr. Garcia visited the residence, he found the room appealing. One of the main attractions was its proximity to his workplace, which would make his daily commute much more convenient. The location factor played a significant role in his initial interest in the rental. In today's busy world, having a short commute can save significant time and money, making it a primary consideration for many renters. During their meeting, Ms. Billotti outlined the financial requirements for renting the room. She requested a security deposit of $700 along with the first month's rent, also $700. This brought the total initial payment to $1,400. Mr. Garcia agreed to these terms. Security deposits are standard practice in rental arrangements. They serve to protect landlords against potential damage to the property or unpaid rent. The amount Ms. Billotti requested was equal to 1 month's rent, which is common in many rental markets. This deposit would typically be held throughout the tenancy and returned at the end if the tenant leaves the property in good condition. On that same day, August 14th, Mr. Garcia provided Ms. Billotti with his first payment. He wrote her a check for $400 as a partial payment toward the total amount owed. This check represented his commitment to taking the room and beginning a rental arrangement with Ms. Billotti. By providing this initial payment, Mr. Garcia was demonstrating serious intent to rent the room and was securing it so that Ms. Billotti would not continue advertising it to other potential tenants. The agreement between the two parties was that Mr. Garcia would officially move into the room and begin his tenancy on September 1st. This gave him a couple of weeks to prepare for the move and arrange his affairs. This time frame is quite typical in rental situations, allowing the tenant time to give notice at their current residence, pack belongings, and make necessary arrangements for the transition. Importantly, this agreement was entirely verbal. No written lease or contract was signed by either party. This lack of written documentation would later become relevant to the dispute. Oral agreements for rentals can be legally binding in many jurisdictions, but they create complications when disputes arise because there is no clear documentation of the exact terms, conditions, and expectations agreed upon by both parties. Written leases typically include important details such as the exact rent amount, due date for rent payments, length of the rental term, rules regarding guests, noise policies, maintenance responsibilities, conditions for breaking the lease, and procedures for handling disputes. Without these elements in writing, both landlords and tenants can face difficulties if disagreements emerge. A few days after their initial meeting, Mr. Garcia returned to make an additional payment. This visit occurred on the Monday following their first weekend interaction. During this second meeting, he brought $880 in cash. Mr. Garcia explained that this money came from tips he had earned from his job over the weekend, suggesting he likely worked in the service industry where cash tips are common, such as in restaurants, bars, or delivery services. The fact that Mr. Garcia made this second substantial payment demonstrates that at this point, he was still committed to the rental arrangement. He had now paid a total of $1,280 toward the $1,400 initial payment required. He still owed $120 to complete the full security deposit and first month's rent. After receiving this substantial cash payment, Ms. Billotti took an important step that demonstrated her acceptance of Mr. Garcia as her tenant. The following day, which would have been August 18th, she removed her Craigslist advertisement. By taking down the listing, she was signaling that the room was no longer available because she had found a tenant in Mr. Garcia. This action by Ms. Billotti is significant from a legal standpoint. By removing the advertisement, she was acting on the assumption that she had a binding agreement with Mr. Garcia. She was no longer seeking other tenants, which meant she was potentially losing other opportunities to rent the room. If Mr. Garcia later backed out, she might struggle to find a replacement tenant in time for the September 1st start date, potentially losing a month's rent. The two parties discussed the possibility of Mr. Garcia moving in before the official September 1st start date. Ms. Billotti initially mentioned that she might allow him 2 weeks of free occupancy, starting from the middle of August. This would have meant he could move in around August 17th without paying additional rent for that period. This offer of free rent was a generous gesture on Ms. Billotti's part. It would allow Mr. Garcia to move in early, settle into the space, and not have to pay double rent if he was still obligated to another residence through the end of August. Such arrangements are sometimes made by landlords who want to accommodate good tenants and ensure a smooth transition. However, there was a complication. The previous tenant had just vacated the room, having only stayed for 9 days before moving out. This very short tenancy suggests there may have been problems with the previous renter or issues with the living situation. Ms. Billotti needed time to properly clean and prepare the room for the new occupant. Because of this cleaning requirement, she revised her offer. Instead of 2 weeks free, she would provide 1 week of free occupancy, allowing Mr. Garcia to move in once the room was properly cleaned and ready, sometime between mid-August and the beginning of September. Despite having made financial commitments totaling $1,280, Mr. Garcia began experiencing doubts about the living arrangement. His concerns centered on interactions he had with Ms. Billotti that made him uncomfortable. During their first meeting on August 14th, when he gave her the initial check, Ms. Billotti made comments that raised red flags for him. She mentioned that she dated men around his age, specifically referencing the age range of 28 to 29 years old. For a first meeting between a prospective landlord and tenant, Mr. Garcia found this personal information inappropriate and professional boundaries between landlords and tenants are important for maintaining a healthy rental relationship. While some level of friendliness is normal and even desirable, discussions about dating preferences during an initial business meeting can certainly make someone uncomfortable. Mr. Garcia interpreted these comments as potentially suggesting Ms. Billotti might have romantic interest in him, which complicated what should have been a straightforward business transaction. Additionally, when he was leaving that day, Ms. Billotti gave him a hug and kissed him on the cheek. This physical contact made him question her intentions. He wondered whether she was looking for a tenant or potentially seeking a romantic relationship. These concerns created what he described as a warning signal in his mind about the living situation. Physical contact between people who have just met in a business context varies by culture and individual comfort levels. Some people are naturally more physically affectionate and may not intend anything inappropriate by a friendly hug. However, others prefer to maintain professional distance, especially in a landlord-tenant relationship. Mr. Garcia clearly fell into the latter category and found the physical contact unwelcome. Despite these reservations, Mr. Garcia proceeded to give her the second payment of $880 in cash just a few days later. This decision showed that either his concerns weren't strong enough initially to prevent him from moving forward, or he felt pressured to continue with the arrangement. It's also possible that he rationalized the behavior, convincing himself that Ms. Billotti was simply being friendly and that he was overreacting. By August 25th, Mr. Garcia had decided he could no longer proceed with the rental arrangement. This was the date when he and Ms. Billotti were scheduled to meet and sign a formal written agreement. However, instead of signing paperwork, Mr. Garcia informed Ms. Billotti that he no longer felt comfortable moving into her home. He cited multiple factors contributing to his decision. Beyond the uncomfortable personal interactions, he mentioned that his brother's wedding was approaching, and he had various other matters demanding his attention. The combination of personal discomfort and life stressors led him to reconsider the entire arrangement. Sometimes when people are feeling uncertain about one aspect of their life, other stresses can amplify those concerns and lead to decisions they might not otherwise make. Ms. Billotti's response to his concerns was measured. Rather than immediately accepting his withdrawal or discussing terms, she suggested that he take time to think about his decision. She told him to sleep on it and let her know his final decision the following day. This was a reasonable approach that gave Mr. Garcia an opportunity to carefully consider whether he was making the right choice. Following their conversation on August 25th, Mr. Garcia sent Ms. Billotti a text message. In this communication, he informed her that he had decided to stay with the original plan and would indeed move in as agreed. This suggests that after sleeping on it, He had reconsidered his concerns and decided to proceed with the rental. However, according to Mr. Garcia's testimony, Ms. Billotti responded with a text message that became central to his lawsuit. He claims that in her reply, she stated she would return the $1,280 he had paid her. This would be crucial evidence if true, as it would show that Ms. Billotti herself agreed to cancel the agreement and refund his money. Furthermore, she allegedly indicated in this message that she would resume looking for other tenants to fill the room. Mr. Garcia also testified that Ms. Billotti mentioned in her text message that she already had 3 people interested in viewing the room. This suggested that she was prepared to quickly find a replacement tenant and had potential candidates lined up. If she could quickly re-rent the room, her financial damages from Mr. Garcia backing out would be minimal. Judge Judy expressed strong interest in seeing this text message, as it would be the key piece of evidence in the case. Without it, the case largely comes down to whether Mr. Garcia had valid grounds to cancel the agreement and receive a refund, which would be a difficult argument to make since his reasons were largely subjective feelings of discomfort rather than any breach of contract by Ms. Billotti.